Ahoy Captain, and welcome to the Project BOEI Tool tutorial. The purpose of this short video is to get you up to speed with how the tool works, and in the end the purpose is to make a business case for you in the case you want to electrify a vessel offshore off the coast at an anchorage using an e-anchor. Please keep in mind that the tool will change, so the version that you see in this video might be different than the version that you are using now, and at any time if you have any questions or need clarifications, you can contact the help desk at the Sustainable Ships website. That being said, let's dive in with step 1. Here we have the tool on our website, sustainableships.org/project BOEI. And as you can see, we first need to understand that all the values that we provide here are indicative. It's for feasibility study purposes only, so no rights can be claimed of the study, and you have to write it down before we start. If we do so, we see there are 4 steps in this tool. Step 1 is project requirements, that's where we are now. Step 2 is ship equipment requirements, all about the vessel. Step 3 is capex opex, that's about how much it costs, and of course operational expenditure. And then finally the business case that we can tweak in order to get a business case for both the ship owner and the supplier of the power. So let's first click on the project. Here we see a project overview. We've broken it down in 3 scopes: infrastructure, e-anchor and the ship. And we have the option to change different scenarios. So in this case the power is provided via an offshore platform, but we might also have a case where power is provided from shore, and even in this case we have a distribution assembly or high voltage switchgear. Well, we can change around and see how that might influence our business case in the end. Then we can change the infrastructure requirements accordingly. E-anchor information is provided here and will be updated in the future. And finally some information on the ship. This is our reference vessel that we use at the moment. So anything here that you want to change for your project can be done. And then if we click on operational profile, we move on to step 2, ship equipment. The most important thing in this step is to input the correct operational profile. That is, how many days will the vessel be idling and mooring, and how many days of those idling and mooring days will be at the anchorage at Scheveningen. So here we see that the standard is 73 days idle moored, which we can change accordingly, and we are 7 days at the anchorage. So let's say, for the sake of clarity, now we have 80 days anchorage, as you can see here, and 148 days idle moored, and the rest of the year we are sailing. That's most important and will also impact your business case for the most part. And if we scroll down below, we see that we can check the power and operational profile. Maybe our average power is reduced, maybe it's increased. That you can change here. You can check if the operational expenditures at this moment concur with your vessel. That you can also see if it's more or less correct. We can choose between the different kinds of shore power equipment that we need and the maximum rated power of that equipment, and we have some more information for the technical persons to see if that concurs with the vessel as well. And then finally the reference case that we have here also provides some general arrangement drawings and a single line diagram, purely indicative at this moment to show you what we meant with shore power equipment, etc. But here we have a system layout and setup, and this is more or less this entire section. Step 2 is dedicated to give you a feel about the shore power equipment required. Again, most important for the business case is the amount of anchorage days that you are at Anchorage. That's it for step 2. Moving on to step 3, the capex and the opex. This part is simply an overview of all the capital expenditure cost, as well as all the way down at the bottom the opex for the different scopes. In the first section we saw that we have a scope split between infra, e-anchor and ship. The same is done here, and you can see the cost for all the different parties involved. Again, I have to stress that all these values and figures are indicative and you can change them accordingly. But it provides a nice overview, and as you can scroll down here, for example, if you are a ship owner, you can have a look, see if it concurs with what you believe is correct for your vessel, and there's a very detailed capex breakdown that incorporates all the assumptions that we make, also gets an estimate of all the retrofitting and commissioning and class certification cost, etc, etc. You can play around with them here, change the rates, change equipment, how much it would cost, etc. So there is much for you to change and customize here in order to get a good estimate of the total costs for conversion. Before we forget OPEX as well, all the way down at the bottom we see OPEX for all scopes. Here we have infra, so this is an estimate of the operational expenditure for the infra cost. We can do the same for the ship. There you see the amount of cost per day multiplied by the amount of days that you are actually on Anchorage, and then you have an indication of the total costs in this scenario. That's it for part 3. Moving on to part 4, the business case. Now comes the fun part, of course, seeing if we can make money out of the business case. And as you can see, we have different viewpoints. We have the viewpoint from the provider, which is the electricity provider, from the e-anchor supplier, and finally the ship owner. And as you can see here in this cash flow, this is for the infra, so scope 1, and there you see a positive business case, as in after a few years there's a positive cash flow. But if we look at the ship itself, then we see there is no positive business case. So perhaps we can tweak around and change it if we go to ship owner. Perhaps when EU ETS, so carbon taxes, are increased, fuel prices are increased, this might be the case or a more positive business case for the ship owner, even though these numbers are of course quite high. So perhaps a lower kilowatt hour price, and moving back. So here we see that at 18 cents per kilowatt hour, maybe this is good enough for the electricity provider, and after only 4 years payback for the ship owner, that's actually pretty good for them, I'd say. But again, these are pretty high numbers, so we can play around and see how the different numbers impact the business case, and from that we can make a sensitivity analysis, at least an assessment. Finally, if needed, we can also add subsidies. So in the case of the ship, supposedly this is not good enough for the ship owner, we can see how many subsidies are required in order to get a good business case. And as you can see, business case for us is cash flow and payback time. Finally, there's also the emissions overview. We see here the total amount of emissions saved when electrifying the vessel per day for the vessel on Anchorage, and then finally also the total if we compare the total amount of days that the vessel is at Anchorage. That concludes the tutorial. This is the business case, and that's all you need to know in order to make one for yourself. We know we might make it look easy, but it can be very complicated and complex for you, not just to use, but also to interpret for your situation. So if at any moment you have any questions or need clarifications, as you saw, you can always use the contact help desk button in order to get help. Please enjoy the tool, and as always, have a great day.